Fairly recently, top-tier ARB is dominated by very advanced systems, such as Actively Electronically Scanned Array or ASA radars. Planes like the Eurofighter and Su-30 SM-2 specifically got access to radars that can gimbal more than 90 degrees. This creates a unique problem for fighters that don't have side-looking radars, like the F-15, F-16, F-18, J-10, and so on. But before I can explain what the problem is, you need to know that while Fox 3s can perfectly guide themselves on their own in the terminal phase, having a radar lock either by TWS or STT makes it much harder for the enemy to notch and chaff the missile. Unfortunately, I couldn't explain in too much detail because the more I do, the more obvious it is that I'm just a silly VTuber. But Megan Fox 3 has a great video explaining how the mechanic works. I'll link it in the description if you want to check it out. So now imagine you're flying your F-15 Golden Eagle that you acquired by spending Golden Eagles. You're the last person on your team facing against the fearsome Su-30 SM-2. You both get closer, you fire off an AMRAAM, and he lets off a 77-1. And right now, you can do one of two things. You can notch his incoming missile, but since you don't have a big enough gimbal limit like he does, your missile no longer knows where it is and heads straight for a 7-4. But the Su-30 does have a big gimbal limit, and his radar tracks you without any issues, and the R77-1 smashes straight through your cockpit. Or you can commit to the crank, guiding the missile within your own radar gimbal limit, but then he will be in the perfect position to notch your missile while perfectly guiding his own, which limits your options as you keep getting put under disadvantageous positions. As you can see, facing off against aircrafts with side-looking radars is tough, especially if you're an aircraft that doesn't have good gimbal limits. I do want to point out that it's not physically impossible for the F-15 to beat the Su-30 in this hypothetical scenario, but the F-15 is certainly being placed under quite a disadvantage. And as Gaijin adds more advanced aircraft, like the Su-35, Su-57, and even later variants of the Eurofighter, I do expect this problem to grow larger, especially because their missile kits are going to be more advanced than anything we've seen so far. Personally, I would love it if Gaijin introduced an AWACS game mode in the future. For example, both teams will have player control AWACS planes that gets access to powerful radars, much more powerful than the ones carried on fighters, and the AWACS players basically act like drones in ground RB, spotting planes and possibly marking it on the map. What would be even more interesting are AWACS aircraft that can data link missiles. Not only does that complement the actual AWACS functions in real life, but it also partially eliminates the disadvantages faced by fighters that don't have a big gimbal limit. So now let's imagine you're in the F-15 again. You fire off the AMRAAM, the Su-30 responds with 77-1s, but instead of being forced into disadvantageous positions, now you have an E3 Sentry on your team that guides your AMRAAMs for you, and you're basically free to make whatever maneuvers you want. Your radar doesn't even have to see the Su-30, since the E3 is perfectly capable of providing guidance to your AMRAAM. Adding AWACS to the game can also open up new strategies. The Nuclear Thunder event is certainly a great proof that we want more interesting game modes. It also proves that a large map can certainly work well, and I believe a larger map will work great for this AWACS game mode. Personally, I would say Gaijin could start testing the concept with early AWACS planes like the KJ-1, Tu-126, and maybe even whatever this is. Well, anyways, that's all I have to talk about today. If you liked this video, I hope you'll drop a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Anyways, I will see y'all next time.